Welcome to the program. Big show coming up. We are meeting a very clever Aussie inventor with some very cool kitchen technology. Geoff Quattromani talks to us about how to make sure Wi-Fi in your home is fast enough. And Samsung is wanting to help you remember to wash your hands. In tech news this week, a lot is going on. Samsung has come out with a very interesting app. If you use one of their Samsung smartwatches, you can install an app onto the watch that will remind you to wash your hands at periodic intervals throughout the day. Now, personally, I'm not really sure the world needs this kind of service, but look, we're getting alerts of our SMSs and calls and emails and WhatsApps and all those other things on our wrist via our smartwatch if we choose to. Hey, why not have a facility that reminds you as well as standing up and walking around a bit every once in a while to also wash your hands while you're doing that? Not a bad idea. Also in tech news, NBN has confirmed that the 40% free capacity increase made available to NBN retailers to ensure that your home internet is kept fast even during the lockdown period is going to be extended until the middle of August 2020. So what that means is your retailer has extra access to capacity free of charge. And that means that they can improve the bandwidth across their service to you. So during peak times especially, you should continue to see the faster NBN speeds being delivered to you. Now, whether we need this or whether we don't is probably up for debate a little bit. If you look at the throughput or the volume of data that we've been using across the NBN network during the day and at peak time since about February this year, and that data is being published to everyone to have a look at by the NBN, there has been a big drop-off in data consumption over the last 2 or 3 weeks. So we probably don't need it as much, but it's still being provided to retailers of NBN by NBN Co. To make sure that you're getting continued improvement in speeds at home, which is a good thing. Now, also in tech news, there's a class action that's been filed against Google over the use of the incognito mode of Chrome. Now, this class action is claiming that even though people are using incognito mode, which is designed to not track the types of searches and web pages that you are looking at and keep records of that history. Even though people are using that incognito mode, Google is still collecting that data via other mechanisms in their network. Now, I don't know how well this is going to go for the class action group, but it'll be interesting to see what the courts decide, which will no doubt take many, many months to decide upon the result. But what is interesting to see is that if you use Chrome, if you use incognito mode, you really, really need to be aware that anything that you're searching for or web pages that you're looking for, Google is likely still to be collecting that data and using it to profile you, which is completely against the whole idea of incognito mode when you're browsing. So what can you do? Maybe use another browser like Firefox, for example. On that browser, use a search engine like a Cookware instead of Google. Don't be logged into a Google account on that Firefox browser, and then you can use that the similar version of incognito mode on Firefox. It's not called the same thing, but it's very similar. To use that feature instead to do your untracked searches that you're trying to do. So that's some advice on how to do that. That is tech news for this week. Bowers Wilkins, famous for high-end quality speaker solutions, have launched a set of premium noise-cancelling headphones, and we've brought a set with us as part of our travel kit. Bowers Wilkins is a household name in audio, having made some important developments through the years. The PX7 represents the company's current top-of-the-line wireless headphone model, and it's got all the features you need. 30 hours of playback with active noise cancelling turned on is enough to match all the other premium wireless headphones on the market. And with fast charging, you get another 5 hours of playback from just 15 minutes on the charger. Comfort is important too, and the PX7 offer over-ear cups that stay comfortable through hours of listening. With soft ear pads and a comfortable headband, you could almost fall asleep with them on. Another neat feature is the proximity sensors in the ear cups. If you take off the headphones while listening, they will automatically pause and then resume playback when you put them back on. There's a great big campaign going on at the moment for Australian-made, Australian-owned, Australian-designed, as we're coming out at the back of the COVID-19 lockdown and global supply chains have been interrupted. Retailing has essentially changed forever, depending on the industry that you are talking about. And I thought, let's talk this week about an Australian innovator that is doing some very, very cool stuff. Some might say boring, but I don't agree. It's technology that is picking a pain point and it's solving that pain point. And for me, that's always really the goal of technology. They're fresh off the back of a very successful Kickstarter, and they were on our radio show on the weekend and was the most clicked link ever of our newsletter that we sent out on Saturday. Solidtechnics is the company. Mark Henry is from Solidtechnics. How are you, Mark?
Hey, Charlie. Thanks for having me on. Is that right? The most clicked link ever on your show? And we're low tech.
Link ever. Yeah. So the way it works is we do a newsletter that goes out straight after the radio show. We do the East Coast radio show. We do the West Coast radio show because obviously different time zones, and the newsletter goes out after the West Coast, and it's the most clicked link ever for a Australian designed, owned, and made pan.
Yeah, and your show is, I know, very tech based, and some people would say that our things are low tech, and they are. When you look at them, they're simple, they're one piece, they just work, but they do work better than anything else. And but behind all that was years of research and development, patents. It's a real world first. No one's ever made pans like this before, and that's why we hold the patents. So there's a lot of technology, a lot of cutting edge, so to speak, manufacturing behind it all to make a simple product in the end.
The thing I wanted to talk to you about first and foremost was we all cook. We're cooking more now, right? And regardless of the growth of Uber Eats and home delivery and all that stuff, one of the things that, and I used to work in commercial kitchens in university to earn an income, but one of the things that we all can use to get more out of life, have a better life, I believe, is being able to cook ourselves. Your product fixes one of those pain points. Tell us about that pain point and how you fix it.
Oh, yeah. Well, one of the pain points is things sticking to your pans, right? The food sticks a lot of the time. And the way that was solved a few decades ago was to coat the pan a synthetic oil-based plastic, and it turns out that was a bad idea. If you followed the independent scientists and what they're saying, if you followed the lawsuits in the USA and the fines that have been levied against the biggest manufacturer of synthetic non-stick, for the contamination and all sorts of trouble there. But going back 3,000 years, everyone had wrought iron pans because they were hand beaten. They start with a lump of iron. It didn't work in the way it was cast. It was kind of susceptible to cracking, so they beat it out with a hammer and formed a pan. And that was the standard for 3,000 years. Then we kind of forgot about that with stainless steel and aluminium, and then coated cookware to help with the non-stick. Now people have been rapidly getting back to iron pans because they've figured out that the old wisdom was the best wisdom. Just by heating the pan with good quality oils and heating it up hot enough that it smokes, that's seasoning the pan. You don't want to cook with the smoke, but you want to season the pan with the smoke. And then more cooking, your natural non-stick from seasoning, just like a wok or a cast iron pan or a French steel pan, that natural seasoning actually gets better over time. So your non-stick improves over the years. And that's the exact opposite to the modern disposable synthetic non-sticks that we all know. If we buy one, within, if you're lucky, 2 years, if you really baby it, 5 years, you'll be throwing that in the landfill. They're not recyclable, and they're all imported. We're the only production manufacturer in Australia, and our pans will never go in the landfill. You just keep on seasoning them, they stay non-stick, and then our durability is literally multi-generations. They're indestructible.
So let's look at that for a sec, because I've cooked with woks, and I've cooked with the non-stick pans. And I'm not going to name brands or anything, but I've got a non-stick pan. And I said on the radio show on Saturday that I absolutely hate it. I hate it because I've got to heat it to this temperature, and I have to season it. I have to put the oil onto it and rub it into it, and then I have to drop the temperature down. And this is just to make pancakes, right? You just want to, I mean, really, you just want to pour the pancake mixture in and go, start cooking. But we can't do that. So, but I've cooked with woks as well. And so you're saying the way I cook with the wok, with the putting the oil in at the end, cleaning it and seasoning it at the end by heating it up till it smokes, and then wiping that oil in properly. That's what I've got to do with your pans, your regular wrought iron pans as well. Is that correct?
Yeah, exactly. And it's really the same thing. I mean, our iron pans are a lot like carbon steel pans or cast iron pans, bare cast iron. So you do need to season them. Now, that's with our iron pans, and it's way easier than it looks, and it's been done for 3,000 years. We like to joke, hey, don't stress about it. It's been done for 3,000 years. And even before the internet came along, we've got videos online and forums where people talk about and help each other out, and it's great. But people forget this was done for 3,000 years. We didn't invent seasoning, and it's done all over the world, hundreds and hundreds of millions of people. But then we also make stainless steel, wrought stainless steel, solid, and that's another world first. That's patented because no one's managed to make a wrought one-piece stainless steel pan ever before. And the amateur engineers will say, no, that's not possible. Stainless steel doesn't conduct. You've got to laminate it. You've got to make it clad with aluminium and different layers to make it conduct. But in reality, if you choose the right type of stainless steel and you forge it solid, then it can be more conductive than the clad layer stuff that has rivets and doesn't last forever.
We'll be right back after this break.
Imagine no more running around the house looking for a free PowerPoint near a mirror to use your hair straightener. Say hello to the Babble 9000 cordless straightener. For those of you with luscious long hair that needs that extra bit of taming, the Babble 9000 cordless straightener has you covered, whether you are on the go or simply need some maneuverability. Get up and running in no time without the need to uncoil the wires from the device when you're in a rush, as it's powered by 4 lithium-ion batteries for sustained power performance. With the ability to give you up to 30 minutes of wireless runtime at max temperature, you can have more time and freedom when styling your hair. The Babble 9000 cordless straightener is a game changer that is set to change things for both hairdressers and users at home.
Today we're talking with Mark Henry from Solidtechnics, a Australian-based manufacturer, developer, patent owner, creator of a range of cool technologies for the kitchen. At the moment, they've got a very successful pan or skillet that they have in the market, and it's a very interesting time to be making stuff. Mark, the recent Kickstarter that you did, very successful for you. Tell me about that.
Yes, Charlie. Wow, it was really a lifesaver for us. We were worried about the whole pandemic and our retailers closing up. So it got really popular because we went back to the drawing board and re-engineered our Australian-made cookware to radically cut costs, but maintain all the quality that they were already famous for with chefs and gourmet cooks. And so we managed to achieve a price of $49 and $59 for Australian-made with Australian iron, employing Australians. So that people responded and got behind us, and we're really grateful for that, because we were thinking we were in a bit of trouble. We cut all our costs, and then with the success of this Kickstarter, it looks like we'll make it, and we'll be here post pandemic, so to speak, to keep on growing for Australia and inspire other Australian manufacturers, we hope. Do you mind if I show one that I prepared earlier, Charlie?
I'd love it if you did.
So that's our stainless steel, wrought stainless steel in one piece. You'll see that the lid is actually not just a lid, it's also a high performance skillet in its own right, flat skillet.
Wow.
And we stamp the
and
pride
is
on
this
the
the one
bottom.
that you did on the Kickstarter? Is this, because the Kickstarter you just finished was 677,000 pledged against a target of 20,000.
Yeah, it was, and the dollars are great. That'll help us survive. You know, we were quite worried about our retailers all shutting down in the early weeks of the crisis. You know, retailers shut, people stopped buying, and it was a wait and see very much then. And we prepared for the worst. We were batting down the hatches. We cut all our costs. We just spent nothing ourselves as a company, waiting to see if we could survive this. And then people started to cook, and people started to realize they were looking at their cookware for the first time carefully in maybe years and saying, wow, you know, like the problems you had, you're going, there's got to be something better than this. And I haven't had time to think about and research it. Well, people started to think about it and researched it. And a lot of people for the first time ever discovered there's a world leading cookware industry right here in Australia, 100% made in Australia, employing Australians, exporting worldwide, all the top chefs using the stuff. It's been the best kept secret of the chefs and the gourmet cooks for 6 years now. So suddenly the public found out about that, and they started to click through and order. So now we're surviving, you know, we're making it. And we happen to, now the exact pan that was on the Kickstarter, sorry, in a long way around to answer your question, Charlie, is this one here. We call it the Lightning pan, and this is pure iron, Australian iron, wrought in Sydney with our patented method in one solid piece. So there's no rivets, there's no joins, there's no welds, and that's why it's indestructible, because wrought iron can't be cracked like cast iron. And so what happens is it is literally indestructible. And now our warranty...
Now I'm going to talk to you about warranties and stuff in a sec, but on the Kickstarter, I saw that there was it looked like there was two main sort of varieties. There was like one that you season yourself, and there was one that's something about beeswax or something like that. Tell me about that second one, because that sounded really interesting as well. Yeah,
well, the one I just showed you, that's completely raw. So that came with just an oil coating to stop it from rusting, because iron will rust pretty quick. But the other option we give is pre-seasoned. And so this is what it looks when it's pre-seasoned at the factory. So it's got a texture. It's heated with oil. It's not a tricky coating. It's not synthetic. It's just heated with oil and at high temperature, and so that makes it rust resistant, and that gets your seasoning started. So it's much easier for beginners, people new to iron, to choose this, and it's called our satin range because of the satin finish. But that's already pre-seasoned, so it's an easy way to get started versus the raw, which is a little more difficult for beginners. So,
and is there something around the cleaning as well of the two different ones? Because I think you're saying on the radio show that you got to be careful with the cleaning, or you clean it a particular way.
Yeah, and really the principle is just like a wok or a cast iron pan. You want to definitely get the food off, and so you know, hot water and a brush normally gets all the food off. If that doesn't get everything off, scrape it. Don't worry about metal. You can use metal, anything. But as long as you return it to smooth, but keep... Now that's what it looks like when it's been well seasoned, and it feels like a non-stick pan, but that's pure iron seasoned with natural, non-toxic converted oil, your cooking oil converts to something non-toxic and hard. So that's what you want. Get the food off, but leave the black stuff on, because that's your converted seasoning. And that's the stuff that's non-stick and non-toxic. The only known non-toxic non-stick in existence is non-stick you can build yourself at home on iron.
Very, very interesting. So you're going to also, I understand, be doing another Kickstarter. And I don't know whether you want to talk about this or not, but I heard about it, and I'm going to make you talk about it, Mark. Because I think
one of the things skills.
Well, one of the things that people were disappointed about on the newsletter, and some of them, because some of them didn't get to your original Kickstarter fast enough to take advantage of it. But obviously that's going to be okay, because you're going to be doing another one. Tell us about that.
Yeah, just quietly between us, Charlie, you and I, in 3 or 4 weeks, we're going to do exactly the same process again. Now, we do this often because every time we launch a new product, it's hugely expensive for us. We've got to pay for all the tooling. We've got to make the actual production run. So it's a massive investment, and particularly when you're doing it in Australia, it's serious. So crowdfunding, Kickstarter is just crowdfunding. A lot of people get excited about what you're doing and get behind it and pledge their money. Then at the end of the campaign, after a month or so, their credit card gets billed, and then we manufacture and then we ship. Well, we've done that 24 times. That Kickstarter that you just saw, the Lightning, was our 24th. So our 25th, in a few weeks' time, will be, just quietly, for other versions of those Lightning pans that were so successful in the last Kickstarter. And they were successful because we worked really hard to cut our manufacturing costs, and we launched that 21 centimeter for the people who got in quick. The early bird special was $49 for that pan made in Australia by Australians with Australian iron. Now it went to $59 after the early bird. That's still a bargain, under the price of most quality imports, and way more durable and healthier and all those good things. So anyway, the new Kickstarter coming up, same process, different sizes in pans, but in the same Lightning iron range.
It is very good what you're doing, Mark. It's encouraging to see Australian development, innovation, manufacturing, those kinds of things going on, especially during this time. It's hard. It is hard, and we're creating our own product here. Very different, of course, but we are on that first line of understanding what it is that your challenges are. But look, well done to you, and look, we're glad to be able to support you. Keep doing it, and look, I'm about to be able to becoming a customer as well, which I'm very excited about for my own cooking, and my kids want to use one as well. We're talking about this on Sunday as we were making pancakes again with our current ridiculous pan that we've got. So Solidtechnics is the name of the company. Mark Henry is from Solidtechnics. We will let everybody know about your next Kickstarter. Keep doing what you're doing. Best of luck to you, and thanks for coming on this morning.
Great. Thanks, Charlie. Thanks for having me. Much appreciated.
Gme is a smart yet safe entertainment offer and is the perfect solution for anyone wanting on-the-go entertainment via your favorite compatible Android apps. Streaming music, podcasts, ebooks, and most other popular app-based services can be enjoyed on a Gme device. One model in the lineup, the Gme Connect, takes the Gme experience further. This device includes 4G cellular connectivity to Australia's mobile networks, so you now have mobile data, calls, and SMS as a part of your Gme experience. Gme Connect includes a call block feature to help you manage incoming and outgoing calls. You can create phone number whitelists and blacklists, giving you more control of incoming and outgoing calls and SMS. Gme Connect has also been tested to operate on Australia's 3 network carriers. It's an unlocked device, so the provider you choose is up to you. Safety with Gme goes further though, with each device tested to meet Australian safety standards. All those results are listed on the Gme website.
Now, last week on the show, we spoke about gigabit NBN and how it's rolling out across suburbs across the country, dependent on what type of NBN you have in your house or in your street, rather. This week, we thought we'd talk with Geoff Quattromani, friend of the show, tech expert, about how to make sure you are having the fastest Wi-Fi speeds in your home so that you can take advantage of better, improved, or faster NBN internet speeds into the home. How are you, Geoff?
I'm really well, Charlie. How are you?
I'm well. At the end of the day, we get given these wireless routers from our new NBN ISP as we sign up. Doesn't matter who it is. Most of them are created by a Wi-Fi router manufacturer for the cheapest possible price that meets the minimum spec as briefed by the vendor, and most are not very good. So we do need to look at new kind of hardware. The first question is, how do you choose between hardware that does this sort of whole home Wi-Fi or a solution that is a faster singular router? What's the breakdown in your mind of how that works?
Look, I think it's a couple of factors that people need to consider when choosing the right router for the home. And one of those could be either the physical size of the house and how far you need to actually, move your Wi-Fi signal, but also how many people and devices are going to be using that Wi-Fi network as well. Because almost like adding lanes on a road, if you've got too many cars, you're going to have a bank of traffic. And if you've got more lanes, you allow the cars to travel smoother. So in the same way that if you've got a proper mesh system that covers the entire home, you've got fast connectivity for all devices to the network, then going back out to the internet. Whereas some of these other routers, they just can't handle the amount of devices that we're now connecting to the internet.
It was an interesting one. We got a question on the radio show on Saturday from somebody who said that they had 26 concurrently connected devices to their Netgear Nighthawk router. And they said the router they're just getting continuous dropouts for these connected devices. And I asked the listener, are you connecting them to both bands and the faster data requiring devices to the 5 gigahertz and the slower ones to the 2.5 gigahertz? And he wasn't. So how much of this is not the right hardware and how much of it is user error? And how do we fix the user error bit?
That's a really good point. I think the way that you actually set up your network is something you need to spend time thinking about, whether it's devices that need to be prioritized over others and having them perhaps on a different band, not a different network, but a different band, as you mentioned. I think that's extremely important to do. But to your point, 26 devices is high, but the current average is 17. So it's not incredibly, out of this world. So we are connecting more devices than ever to our network, whether it's our TVs, our smart speakers, our phones, obviously computers. Everything is being internet connected now. And as we start to build that up, we are putting a huge strain on the network. So you need to actually spread them out, have them share the load, and actually cover all the bands that you do have available on every router that you've got.
Parental controls or parental non-controls, as some people in the industry refer to them. Some of them are good, some of them are not. Some of them you pay for via subscription, some of them you don't. Some of them you require an extra piece of hardware to be plugged in, some of them don't. They come built into the router. What do we need to look for when we're picking parental controls, and what should we be seeing in terms of behavior around the house to ensure that they are actually working?
Look, I think the first thing to say is that I don't think parental controls on a router should replace parenting. So I think that's always going to be the first thing, that people need to think that while you've got parental controls available, that doesn't mean that you completely become hands-off when it comes to monitoring what your children are doing. The fact is that the current routers that we have available today usually also come with an app. And that means that you can control your home network easily just through an app on your phone. And that means you can actually do it from anywhere as well. So, if you're at work and the kids are at home, you can actually still control what they're accessing, what they're able to do on the internet. So I think you need to start thinking about things like the amount of time that they're allowed to spend using the internet. Obviously, the websites that they can visit as well. You'll always find that kids are going to be one step ahead of you when it comes to getting around certain restrictions. They're very good. They're very creative at finding these ways to do it. I remember when I was at school, we used to do it to get out of the school network. But at the end of the day, if you can measure and control what sites they're accessing and how long they're doing it, the router is a great place to start, but you can also be doing it on the devices themselves. So if they've got, an Apple device or even an Android device, there are parental controls that can be put in place on the device. Same thing with gaming consoles. Look at the parental control options there. There, again, is a huge amount of options. So I think it's tackling it at every entry point to try and gain some control. But again, it doesn't replace that conversation that you have with your kids to say, what are you looking at? Pass me your phone, show me what you're doing. And actually being in control of that experience too.
It is an interesting one. The hardware that we have, that we choose, it so often is determined by price. I mean, we can spend anywhere up to $1,000 now, depending on what kind of system you're going for. But we're also seeing very good solutions in that sort of $300 to $500 mark that really can control the load around the house quite well, that are even coming pre-configured or pre-built with this Wi-Fi 6 technology. Maybe talk a bit about Wi-Fi 6 technology and some things to look for in buying the right router for you.
Yeah, absolutely. So, we started this conversation talking about gigabit, and one of the funny parts around this is that the internet connection coming into your home becomes faster than what could be capable of your router. So if you've got a device that isn't Wi-Fi 6 compatible, for example, it may not be able to handle the speeds that are actually coming into the home. And as a result, your devices aren't getting the full capacity that you could be getting from that type of plan. So you do need to be looking at things like Wi-Fi 6, 802.11.AC and AX is the other names that you might be looking for on the box, and making sure that, yes, your router supports that, but also do your devices. You'll probably find that there's some older model laptops which have an older wireless standard built in. Even if you upgrade the router, the laptop itself might not be able to connect at those speeds. And the same thing for phones and others. So it really is time to audit the devices that are connecting in your home and understanding the limitations in terms of speed that you would get between the device to the router and then from the router out to the internet. And I think whether you're on an NBN 100 plan or even less, you need to actually be doing those speed tests from the device, from the router, to actually see what you're receiving and make sure it's actually completely accurate, because we've both had many complaints from people around the NBN. People will say they're not getting the speed that they signed up for, but they're doing a speed test on their smartphone in the backyard. And there are so many limitations as to why that would start to cause problems. You need to be doing those speed tests plugged into the router and get a real representation of what speed you're actually getting before you make that complaint.
It is always a good thing to have a look at, because it's one of those technologies in the home, maybe second only to the fridge, that we're using pretty much most of the time while we're awake. So having good hardware that is doing for you what you need it to do is a wise investment. We'll make this discussion, we'll have this discussion again another time in the future, because it's always topical. Geoff Quattromani, thanks for taking some time to talk to us today.
Thank you, Charlie.
This segment is brought to you by Gme, the safer smart device. Lots of questions coming through. Leave them in the comments section. Plus, you can email them through to us as well. A question came through this week from Louise. She's saying that her and her husband are basically sharing the same exact photos to each other when they are being backed up to their Apple iCloud. She said the reason could be that they are using the same Apple account on each iPhone device. Well, that's the exact reason why that is happening. So what you need to do, Louise, to stop that from happening, so you're not clogging up each other's devices with all each other's photos, is get your own Apple ID for each device. And what you can then do, once they're set up on each individual iPhone, is use family sharing, so that any types of apps that you purchase or content, for example, that kind of thing, you can still use that between the two of you. You don't have to pay for it twice. But what you're doing is you still have your own device, which Apple sees as separate devices rather than one device, because they've got the same Apple ID on both. Hope that helps you. The other questions that we had came through this week. We had one from Ian came through about, Ian sent an email through about NBN connecting to his house. And he said that they have told him that because he's on Optus cable, the Optus cable is not the right cable for HFC NBN. Well, that's true. It's the Foxtel cable. NBN did plan to use the Optus cable to connect homes across Australia to NBN via HFC, but the signal level that carried the internet wasn't compatible. It was going to be too expensive. Long story short, too expensive to get it up to speed, so they junked the whole thing, put the investment into the previous Foxtel HFC network, and that is how you get NBN HFC. That's how we get it in our studio here, for example. Now, if you don't have that, you're going to be doing what Ian did, and you're going to be connecting to NBN via copper to that HFC network, or to the closest node, and then jumping onto HFC or from there. So that's what you got to do, Ian. And if it's a very slow speed, it's unfortunately copper that is going to be carrying that internet. If it's not fast enough for you, you can request NBN to look at improving that speed in your home. It's a bit of a long-winded process to do that, though. Other question we had this week came from Christine. Her old 3G phone is dropping out, wondering whether it's got anything to do with the fact that the 3G networks will be turned off in the next few years. Well, it's not till 2024 that 3G is being turned off, and that's Telstra that's announced that. So no, your 3G phone should still be working, and if you're getting dropouts, it's not because of the network. Might be a good idea to look at a 4G handset though, because, well, they're better, to be honest. The data speeds are better, and they're just as efficient as they have been. Now, obviously, Jimmy Connect, that's a 4G handset, so that might be one for you. The other one that we thought you might be interested in checking out is the Alcatel 3L. Lots and lots of interest in that handset at the moment because it's $199. But remember, you do need to connect on the Vodafone network. Hopefully, that advice is going to help you out, Christine. Thank you for getting in touch with us. And from everyone who sent questions through this week, thank you for asking a question as part of CyberShack Live. Thanks for tuning into the show. Don't forget to ping us any questions that you've got through the comments section. We'll get to them on next week's show. Visit our website, cybershack.com. On next week's show, we're going to be speaking to Oppo Australia about their new 5G handset that's releasing into the market. Looking forward to that chat. Plus, all the other cool stuff we'll have on the show then. Make sure you tune into that show. But for now, thanks for watching this week.